The Valerian Prime Tribunal Hall was a cathedral of light and silence. Its ceilings rose higher than the clouds, crafted from transparent diamond glass mined from moons that no longer existed. Stars shimmered faintly above, magnified to the hall's open crown, a reminder that justice, in the eyes of the galaxy, watched from every corner of the void. The Galactic Tribunal had not convened in over 2 centuries. The last time it had been the exile of species for genetic atrocities, the Red Han Purge. But this time the mood was different. The air trembled with curiosity, disdain, and a faint threat of unease. The tribunal called upon humanity. They were, to most of the elder species, a young, reckless civilization, ambitious, expansionist, brilliant, and terrifyingly adaptable. The kind of species that burned through centuries of progress in a heartbeat. The kind that made the galaxy nervous. And yet, when the summons came, the humans had accepted it without protest. 7 of them entered the hall together, walking through the shimmering starlit floor. They wore no armor, no medals, just black formal uniforms, clean, simple, with a silver emblem of Earth upon their chests. No guards, no weapons. Their faces were composed, but their eyes carried something that made even the oldest alien species avert their gaze. From the highest dais, the High Consul Carven of the Orid Dominion studied them with all 8 of his crystalline eyes. His people had not fought a war in 10 millennia. They were tall, crystalline beings who glittered under Tribunal's light, every facet reflecting superiority and certainty. He raised one slender hand, his voice echoing through the chamber. Species of soul, you stand before the tribunal not as accused, but as witnesses to your own legacy. The translator drones hummed as his words filled the chamber in hundreds of tongues. For too long, your kind has walked the path of fire. You have made peace and broken it. You have built wonders and destroyed them. You have survived, and yet you remain bound to conflict. He paused, letting the weight of his accusation linger. We summon you here to answer a single question, one that defines all sentient life. Carven's gaze swept across the human delegation. Who among you has seen war? The chamber fell into absolute silence. Billions of beings across the galaxy watched through live holo feeds. Delegates of every major species sat in the tiers above. The serene Valari Ascendancy, the insectoid Zelkran Hive, the telepathic Leiden Collective, the machine priests of the Centauri Conclave. To most of them, war was ancient history. The word existed only in their archives, sterile and forgotten. But to humanity, it was something else entirely. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, quietly, the lead human, Ambassador Sarah Holt, took a breath and stood. Her face was calm, her voice level. We have all seen war. Her words, though simple, carried through the hall like thunder. The other humans rose beside her, the gray-haired General Aiden Voss, his cybernetic arm glinting faintly. Dr. Julian Kale, a medic with a burn scar running down his neck. Lieutenant Miratran, whose steady gaze betrayed the reflexes of a fighter pilot. Historian Leto Rains, carrying a tab of Earth's forgotten wars. Captain Juno Ward, survivor of the siege of Europa, and envoy Hannah Reyes, the youngest, yet with eyes that had seen too much for her years. 7 humans, 7 histories, 1 truth. Every one of them stood. The tribunal chamber seemed to breathe, a collective intake of disbelief. Murmurs rippled through the alien seats. For the first time in generations, some of them felt a tremor of unease. High Consul Carven's tone faltered. All of you. Ambassador Holt met as many eyes. Every human alive has seen war, in body or in memory. She gestured toward the silent ranks of her team. We are the children of survivors. Our history is written in the ashes of our own mistakes. You ask who has seen war, but you might as well ask who has lived. From the side tiers, a voice, shrill and metallic, broke in. It was a Centauri representative, a machine intelligence shaped like an angel of polished steel. Impossible. No species could survive such constant conflict and remain cohesive. Your records exaggerate. The humans did not respond with anger. Instead, Dr. Kale simply said, "Then perhaps your kind never truly fought for survival." The alien murmurs grew louder. the tribunal echoing with whispers. Carven raised a hand for silence. You claim universal experience of war. Then show us. Explain how such a thing can be true. Sarah Holt inclined her head. Gladly. She stepped forward, activating a hollow emitter embedded in her wrist. The chamber lights dimmed as the holographic field expanded. The first images were ancient, humans in primitive armor, steel clashing, fire-consuming cities. The world wars, the fall of old Earth, the Reformation conflicts. Thousands of years of blood, sacrifice, and rebirth. The aliens watched in stunned silence as images of tanks, starships, orbital bombardments, and collapsing cities played in luminous streams of light. But the humans did not show glory. They showed pain. The eyes of a mother holding her child in a bombed ruin. The hand of a soldier reaching out to an enemy. The silent graves that stretched beyond the horizon. Ambassador Holt's voice was low, steady, carrying a weight that silenced even the proud Orth consul. These are our ancestors. Every war we fought taught us something. That peace is fragile, that unity is born from grief, and that survival has a price. We carry those memories because forgetting them would mean repeating them. Carven's crystalline eyes dimmed slightly, reflecting flickers of fire from a hologram. And yet you continue to build armies, weapons, fleets. Yes, Holt answered, because peace without defense is an illusion. You have forgotten that peace must be protected. Her words rippled through the chamber. Even the machine minds of the Centauri paused in quiet computation. General Voss finally spoke, his voice gravelly, deep, the tone of someone who had commanded fleets and watched them burn. We learned long ago that peace is not given. It's held. We hold it with our hands, with our courage, with our dead. He looked across the assembly of aliens, their jeweled robes, their unscarred forms. You've lived so long in peace you've forgotten what it costs. The tribunal murmured again, but this time with something different, respect or fear. From the upper balconies, the Lydan delegate, a silver-skinned telepath, leaned forward, voice trembling. Do you regret it? The wars. Sarah Holt's expression softened. Every one of them. But regret is what keeps us human. Her eyes swept the chamber. We don't honor war. We remember it, because those who forget repeat it. You may think we are dangerous, but our memory is what has kept your borders safe. When the Clyrath swarm reached your colonies, whose fleet stood between you and extinction, no one answered. Everyone knew the truth. It had been human fleets that died in droves to buy the outer world's time. It had been human soldiers who fought in the Black Void, while others hid behind treaties. The silence was deafening. At last, Carven's voice broke the stillness, softer now, uncertain. You carry the burden of violence as if it were virtue. Holt shook her head. Not virtue, responsibility. And in that moment, something changed in the hall. The tribunal had. The chamber of the Galactic Tribunal remained dim. The air carried the quiet pulse of the hollow projectors cooling, and the echo of the last human words, not virtue, responsibility, still lingered like a ghost. No one spoke for several moments. Even the drones that recorded the session paused, as if reluctant to disturb the silence. Finally, High Consul Carven leaned forward. His many crystalline facets caught the dim light, refracting it into sharp edges across the room. You claim war as your teacher, yet peace still eludes you. How can a species learn and still continue to bleed? It was not mockery this time. It was curiosity, cold, analytical, but edged with something new, uncertainty. Ambassador Sarah Holt nodded once, almost as if she had expected the question. Because memory is not immunity, Consul. We remember our mistakes. That doesn't mean the universe stops making them. Her words drifted like slow embers. Then she gestured, and the hollow field shimmered again, this time softer, smaller. The massive projections of tanks and starships were gone. What replaced them were faces. Children hiding beneath collapsed schools. Soldiers standing guard over shattered cities. A medic closing the eyes of an enemy combatant. The aliens shifted in their seats. The images were not about armies or victory, but human cost. Dr. Julian Kale, the medic among the delegation, stepped forward. He spoke quietly, each word trembling but clear. I was on Mars during the siege of Ares Port. I saw entire domes collapse. I tried to save a boy, alien, Valari child. Couldn't have been more than 8. He bled the same color as my own. He paused, rubbing the scar at his neck. That's when I realized war doesn't care what species you are. It only teaches the survivors. The tribunal murmured softly. The Valari delegates, ethereal beings of light and plasma, turned toward Kale, their forms dimmed in shame. They had abandoned Mars during that siege. Ambassador Holt turned to them, not in accusation, but in understanding. We don't show this to demand pity, she said. We show it because this is what memory looks like to us. Every scar, every song, every lesson. You asked who has seen war. What you really asked was who remembers it. The hollow shifted again, showing brief flashes of humanity's past. A battered city on Earth where survivors planted gardens in radioactive soil. A starship drifting, its crew holding hands as they faced the void. A memorial carved into moon, a field of lights for every life lost defending another world. We built monuments not to glorify, Holt said softly, but to remind, because peace without memory is a lie. A voice crackled from the upper balcony, belonging to Judge Sonear of the Zelkren Hive. The insectoid's mandibles clicked uneasily. Your history is endless conflict. Surely such suffering would drive your kind to extinction. Why endure it? General Aiden Voss answered this time. His voice was deep, carrying the weight of command and loss. Because we didn't have a choice. He took a step forward, the sound of his metal foot echoing through the chamber. Every generation, we swore our wars would be the last. And every generation, the universe found a new way to test that promise. When the swarm came for your colonies, when the rogue AIs burned the Helios corridor, when the void storms cut supply lines, humanity stood. Every time. Because someone had to. He glanced up, eyes sharp. You think we fight because we love war. We fight because we've seen it. And no one else should have to. The words hit like an orbital strike. The tribunal's silence was almost reverent. Even the Centauri machine envoy tilted its metallic head, processing. If war is so abhorrent, it asked, voice like tempered steel, why do you keep records? Why not delete the trauma? Holt smiled faintly. Because the cost of forgetting is always higher. The hollow feed shifted once more, now showing scenes of peace. A soldier teaching alien children how to read beneath the shade of a rebuilt dome. A human diplomat shaking hands with a Zelkren broodmother after ending a 100-year border dispute. A group of veterans planting trees on a world that had once been scorched black. This is why we keep memory alive. Holt said, to remember what peace cost. In the upper tiers, whispers broke out. Some alien delegates nodded solemnly. Others averted their eyes, ashamed. But not everyone was swayed. High Consul Carven spoke again, his tone brittle but sharp. Noble words. But do not mistake suffering for wisdom. The galaxy moved beyond such chaos ages ago. You cling to pain as if it grants you purpose. Dr. Kale looked up at him, eyes tired but unwavering. You mistake comfort for enlightenment, Consul. You think peace is permanent because you were lucky enough to inherit it. He gestured toward the shimmering hologram of human ruins. We weren't born into peace. We built it, brick by brick, grave by grave. Carven's eyes flickered, somewhere between anger and recognition. Before he could reply, a new voice emerged, a gentle, crystalline tone that resonated through the hall. It was Judge Saron of the Lythan Collective, the empathic telepath who had watched silently until now. Ambassador Holt, Saron said, when we touch your minds, we feel echoes. Memories that burn. You hold on to them as though they define you. Why? Hope met the alien's luminous gaze. Because they do. Our scars tell us who we were, and who we refuse to be again. For a moment, Saron closed her eyes, visibly shaken. Through the faint glow around their temples, the empath's voice whispered to the tribunal in unison. They remember the dead, and the dead remember them. A wave of quiet swept through the entire hall. Even Carven lowered his crystalline hand, saying nothing. In that silence, historian Leto Rains activated his data slab. A soft blue light revealed hundreds of human names. "These are not soldiers," he said softly. "These are teachers, doctors, farmers, people who lived through wars they never wanted. We keep their names because every one of them taught us something." He scrolled through the list, stopping at one entry. "My great-grandmother. She was 6 when the orbital fires fell. She never picked up a weapon, but she told me this. If you survive, you have a duty to remember what the dead can't." The historian looked up at the assembly, his eyes reflecting starlight. "That's why every human stood when you asked to have seen war, because every one of us carries someone else's memory." The tribunal sat in perfect silence. No one dared move. The galaxy's greatest powers, the ancient, the wise, the eternal, found themselves face to face with something older than civilization itself. The will to remember pain and grow from it. At last, Carven spoke again, his voice quieter now. "You speak of burden as if it were honor." Ambassador Holt answered without hesitation. "It's neither. It's duty." The High Consul leaned back slowly, his crystalline eyes shimmering faintly with refracted light. For the first time, there was no mockery in his tone. "Perhaps, Ambassador, we have lived too long in peace. Perhaps it has made us blind." Sarah Holt bowed her head slightly. "Peace without memory is blindness, Consul. It sees nothing coming." The words hung in the chamber like a prophecy. No one dared break the silence. The alien delegate stared at the human delegation. 7 figures standing in shadow and light, each one carrying the weight of 1,000 wars and still refusing to bow. The tribunal's grand lights. The tribunal reconvened beneath the pale twin suns of Valerian Prime. Overnight, news feeds across 1,000 systems had replayed the humans' testimony again and again. In markets, in temples, on war-free worlds that had forgotten the word sacrifice, being spoke the same line. They all stood. When the gavel tone rang, the chamber was already tense. The crystalline pillars reflected a colder light than before. No one dared whisper. The galaxy had come to watch what would happen next, whether the tribunal would break the humans or be changed by them. High Consul Carven struck the dais. Proceedings resume. "Humanity, you have moved this assembly to reflection. Yet reflection does not absolve you." His voice reverberated like shattering glass. "You call yourselves witnesses of war, but witnesses are not saints. Your history shows aggression, colonial expansion, preemptive strikes, military alliances that fractured weaker worlds. Explain yourselves." The accusation hung like a blade. For a moment the human delegation remained silent. Then the oldest among them, General Aiden Voss, rose. His uniform bore no rank pins. He had long since earned the right not to need them. "You want explanation, Consul? I'll give you truth." He limped forward until he stood in the circle of light, reserved for testimony. His mechanical leg clicked softly on the glass floor. "You call it expansion. We called it survival. Every system we colonized was one step farther from extinction. The first war we ever fought off-world wasn't for conquest. It was for oxygen." A low murmur rippled through the alien tiers. Voss gestured, and the hollow display flared to life again. This time it did not show battles. It showed refugees, humans and aliens together on scorched transport decks, carried by ships patched together from wreckage. "You see soldiers," Voss said. "We see civilians we had to carry when no one else came. We see the lithen children we hid on Titan when their fleets were gone. We see the Red Han survivors we sheltered even after their empire tried to erase us." He looked up at the alien judges. "You sit here today because humanity stood in the fire while the rest of you watched from orbit." A hiss of protest echoed from the upper balconies. The insectoid Zelkran representative snapped its mandibles. "Lies!" The Hive offered aid during the Helios incursion. "Offered?" Voss cut in. "But when your ships reached Helios Gate, we were already burning in orbit to hold the line." The hollow shifted. Scenes of the Helios Gate siege. A ring of human dreadnoughts, hulls cracked and glowing, standing between the swarm and a corridor of fleeing transports. Alien engineers in the chamber turned their eyes away. Some recognized their own colony markings on the transports in the footage. Ambassador Holt's voice joined softly beside Voss. We didn't ask for gratitude then. We don't ask for it now. But don't mistake our silence for guilt. We fought your wars when you chose treaties over courage. The tribunal erupted in overlapping languages, translators worrying to keep up. The session teetered on chaos. Carven's crystalline staff slammed the dais again, throwing a flash of light. Order, humanity, your defiance borders on arrogance. Voss met his glare. Arrogance is thinking peace makes you better than those who bled to earn it. The chamber froze. The old general's voice carried no anger now, only exhaustion. The fatigue of someone who had commanded fleets through hell. Then, quietly, another alien spoke. Judge Saron of the Lythan Collective rose from their seat, their silver-blue form pulsing faintly. General Voss speaks truth, Saron said. Our archive confirmed the Helios Gate footage. Humanity bought our survival with their own extinction ratio. Without them, the swore would have consumed our core worlds. The hall felt utterly silent. Carven's crystalline fingers twitched. Judge Saron, you risk the integrity of this tribunal. Integrity, the Lythan echoed. Truth does not threaten integrity, it defines it. Murmurs turned to open voices now. Delegates from a dozen species whispered agreements, others objections. The perfect order of the tribunal cracked for the first time in ages. Ambassador Holt stepped forward again. Her voice was calm, but carried the command of someone who had spoken in war rooms. This isn't about guilt, Consul. It's about empathy. You asked to have seen war, but what you really wanted was to measure who still feels it. She looked around the chamber, at beings of crystal, light, and metal. You have sterilized your history. You've deleted pain because it made you uncomfortable. But empathy is born from pain. Without it, peace is hollow. The words cut through the air like starlight through fog. A mechanical tone answered her, cold, logical, the voice of the Centauri conclave. Emotion is inefficient. Empathy impairs judgment. It led your species to unnecessary sacrifice. Dr. Kale turned to the Centauri envoy. Maybe, but it also led us to pull your wounded from the wreckage of Delphi 9. The machine went silent. Its optical sensors dimmed to a single blue ring. Holt's gaze returned to the tribunal dais. We don't seek to infect you with our grief, Consul. We only ask that you remember what it costs to call yourselves civilized. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then Carven rose slowly. His crystalline body refracted the chamber's light into a storm of color. And what would you have us do, Ambassador? Return to barbarism? Fill our skies with fleets again? Holt's expression softened. No, I would have you feel. Remember what fear of loss taught you. To protect, to value, to stand together. You built peace by forgetting. We built ours by never allowing ourselves to. A single phrase from the crowd broke the stillness. It came from a young alien envoy of the Valari Ascendancy, her form of living light trembling. If what you say is true, then you are the galaxy's conscience. Her words spread like an awakening current. One by one, the lights of the balconies began to flicker, delegates linking comm feeds to broadcast a human testimony live across systems that had banned all mention of war. The tribunal could no longer contain the tide. Carven raised a staff, but this time it trembled. You claim the mantle of memory, yet memory divides as much as it unites. How do you keep from drowning in it? General Voss's voice answered, soft and certain. By sharing it. He reached into his coat and produced a small, scorched piece of metal, a dog tag fused with alien alloy. This belonged to a Lythan soldier. She died on my bridge, saving my crew. We remember her name every year. That's how we live with it. He placed the tag on the tribunal floor. The light refracted through it, casting two shadows, one human, one Lythan. Saron stepped down from their seat and knelt beside it. Their hand of light touched the metal. Then I will remember her too, the judge said. The hall fell utterly silent again. Carven looked from the kneeling Lythan to the unbowed humans. His many eyes flickered. Something within his crystalline chest dimmed. Perhaps a shard of envy or understanding. You are dangerous, he said quietly. Not because of your weapons, but because you make others feel again. Ambassador Holt inclined her head. Then maybe the galaxy needed danger. The consul stared at her for a long time, then struck the dais once. The sound was softer than before. This tribunal will recess. Tomorrow we decide not your guilt, but your place among us. Dawn rose slowly over Valerian Prime, turning the sky into a sea of molten gold. The Galactic Tribunal spires caught the light, refracting it into 1,000 shards that danced across the chamber walls. For the first time in centuries, the light felt warm, not sterile. Humanity stood once more in the circle of truth. Around them, the other delegation sat in uneasy silence. The events of the previous day had rippled through the stars. Billions had watched the broadcast, and billions more had begun asking the same forbidden question. What had we forgotten? When the gavel tone rang again, it sounded less like a sentence and more like a heartbeat. High Consul Carvan appeared changed. The once pristine crystal of his body had dimmed slightly, as if time had finally touched him. He looked not down at the humans this time, but across, an equal gaze. Humanity of soul, he began. This tribunal convenes not to condemn, but to understand. Yesterday, you forced us to confront a truth we abandoned ages ago. Today, we must decide what that truth means for the galaxy. Ambassador Lyra Holt inclined her head. Then let us decide together, Consul. That's all we ever wanted. The tribunal chamber dimmed as the central hollow expanded into a vast starfield. Systems and empires glimmered like scattered jewels. Among them, faint traces of red light pulsed, not in warning but remembrance. Dr. Kale stepped forward, voice calm yet trembling with awe. Those lights, they're responding. Responding, Carvan repeated. To empathy, Kale said. Your archives are not just data, they're living memory fields. When you reactivated the broadcast of yesterday's hearing, it triggered dormant resonance networks. The stars are remembering what they once held, the signatures of every civilization that ever fell to war. Gasps rippled through the hall. The hollow expanded again, showing worlds long thought lost. Echoes of ancient transmissions flickered to life. Distress calls, lullabies, declarations of peace. It's as if the galaxy itself kept the memory, Kale whispered, waiting for someone to ask the right question. Ambassador Holt turned slowly, her voice quiet but unshakable. You asked who had seen war. The answer wasn't just us. It was all of you. You just forgot the shape of it. For a moment, the entire tribunal seemed suspended between light and silence. Then Judge Saron of the Lythan Collective rose once more. Their luminescent bodies shimmered with soft azure light. I'm moved to dissolve the standing prohibition on historical warfare records, Saron declared. Let every species remember what bought their peace. Carvan hesitated. Do you understand what you propose? The emotions, the chaos, are the cost of truth, Saron interrupted. And truth is what we owe to those who stood before us. The chamber filled with overlapping translations. One by one, representatives of other species stood. The insectoid Zelkren, the machine Centauri, even the silent Vlar monks of the gas worlds. Slowly, methodically, they rose. Then, astonishingly, each placed something small upon the tribunal floor, a relic, a memento, a fragment of their past, a rusted weapon, a broken circuit, a crystal shard from a fallen temple. General Aiden Voss stepped forward, his mechanical leg whispering against the glass. From his jacket, he drew the fused dog tag again and set it gently among the alien relics. Then let this be our covenant, he said quietly. We remember together. No more erasures. No more lies of perfection. Only truth and the will to bear it. A hush followed. Carvan's many eyes flickered as he gazed upon the growing pile of artifacts. For the first time, his voice carried something like emotion. You remind us of something dangerous, human general. What's that? Voss asked. Hope. Then the consul did something no one in the chamber had ever seen. He stepped down from the dais and placed his crystalline staff among the relics. Its light dimmed to match the others. Let the record show, he said softly, that this tribunal no longer sits above the galaxy, but among it. The hall erupted, not in chaos this time, but in unity. The sound was overwhelming. Cheers, roars, vibrations, even mechanical harmonics from the Centauri, all merging into one impossible symphony. Above, the hollow starfield pulsed brighter and brighter until it filled the room with a radiant glow. The old war frequencies had transformed into harmonics of remembrance, turning pain into light. Ambassador Holt felt tears sting her eyes. She looked toward Voss and Kale. "We didn't just remind them of war," she murmured. "We reminded them how to feel alive." Outside, the twin suns rose higher, their light reflecting from orbiting ships. Some were human, most were alien, but for the first time their signals aligned. Across sectors, old military channels reactivated, not for combat, but to transmit the shared record of history. The memory accord of Valerian was signed within the hour. It would become the first galactic law in millennia written by every species in common code. Its first line read, "To remember is not to bleed, it is to heal." As the document sealed itself in the archives, Carven turned to the humans. "What will you do now, children of Sol? The galaxy owes you a debt that cannot be repaid." Voss smiled faintly. "We didn't come for debt, Consul. We came so no one would ever stand alone again." Kale added, "We've seen what forgetting does. We'd rather carry the scars together than live in someone else's illusion of peace." Carven studied them for a long moment, then bowed, a deep, deliberate motion that sent ripples of light cascading across his crystalline form. The other judges followed, then the representatives, then the observers. In a single, breathtaking moment, every being in the chamber, of flesh, light, crystal, and code, bowed toward the human delegation. The galaxy, once divided by silence, now stood united by memory. As they departed the tribunal, Ambassador Holt paused at the threshold. The great hall behind her shimmered with a new star map, each light representing a world that had chosen to remember. Dr. Kale looked up. "Do you think they'll keep it?" "They will," Holt said softly, "because now it's in the stars themselves." General Voss rested a hand on the glass railing. "Funny," he mused. "We used to think the stars didn't care who lived or died, but maybe they were just waiting for us to speak their language again." The others smiled. Outside, the galaxy itself seemed to breathe. Ancient frequencies intertwined with new ones, a chorus of remembrance spanning light years. The wars of the past became echoes, not destruction, but of unity born from shared pain. For the first time since the dawn of recorded spaceflight, the stars did not feel cold. They pulsed like hearts. And somewhere in that vast, glittering sea, the voice of a young Valari envoy whispered through an open comm channel. "The humans taught us that peace isn't the absence of war. It's the courage to remember why we fight to protect it." Ambassador Holt looked up at the heavens. Her reflection shone beside the twin suns, one of countless beings reborn into truth. "Then let the stars remember," she whispered. And the stars did. Across the galaxy, light traveled faster that day, not because physics had changed, but because understanding finally had.